Hello everyone, it's me again, Moonshine, 1/3 of 8-bit fiction, and I don't know, I guess I'll just get on with it and say that last week was really a lot, and probably the most difficult week of the past few months, if not one of the most difficult weeks that I've ever been through in my whole life. There's a lot going on. The pandemic hasn't stopped, still going on, and on top of that, crisis upon crisis upon crisis in many different parts of the world. And I needed some time to kind of just process that for myself. And honestly, I'm making this video today unsure about what I'm gonna say, but I decided that maybe I'll just tell you about what I did and how I tried to deal with it for myself. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and say I'm gonna be talking about something that's not easy. So if you're gonna watch this, I would really like it. I'm going to ask you to watch it till the very end, just so you get the whole picture. In the past weeks, we've talked about anger. I've talked about the difficulty of anger and care, and the difficulty of compassion, but the importance of it too. At the very beginning of this, I talked about anxiety, or the worry, fear, the mode we get into when we're threatened, when we are uncertain about the future. I talked about helping other people, or helping yourself. Okay, knowing your emotions and things you have to do when you're trying to help somebody else. And I find that last week was kind of like a test, and all of those things we talked about from the very beginning of this lockdown was just put to the test, and it was a difficult time. I'll just say though that it's really great seeing people so involved. People are reaching out to each other, people are getting vocal, people are starting to show what they care about, and they're starting to express it very loudly, and that's great. A lot of people are putting their anger to good use and are reaching out to each other compassionately. But I have to acknowledge that there were really points where I was just overwhelmed, and I could feel something, a new feeling actually kind of creeping into my space. And as I look around and see what's happening, I see what's happening here in the Philippines, the threats that we are now faced with. I see what's happening over there in the US, okay, all the protests, the brutality. I see what's happening over there in Hong Kong, okay, and the painful thing is that none of these things are new. Okay, the injustices brought about by racism is not new. This is not the first time that protests have erupted. The protests in Hong Kong have been going on for some time too. The protests here have been going on for some time too. So it's just this feeling when you look back, and it seems that there's just no end to things, that things keep on getting worse. There's no break, there's no reprieve, there's no rest. It's just one crisis after the other, and each one begins to affect us more and more, and it becomes clearer and clearer that something's wrong. This is a threat. We are unsafe. We need to do something about it. And I don't know if anybody else feels this, but the feeling of hopelessness does creep in, because it's this thing again. We were protesting this last month, we were protesting this last year, we were protesting this years ago. But But what's changed? None of these things are new. And there's a voice in my head that's really saying it's too hard. They're not going to listen. They're not going to listen to us. There will be more violence. More people will be threatened. And I am sure that this is not the end of our effort. Our effort has to go on for much, much longer than it is. For sure, this is just a start. And that just feels so hopeless when I see that there is so much repetition. Things are happening again and again, and things change so little. So I find myself there, not all the time, but once in a while. But hopelessness is one of those things that once you feel it, it's like nobody wants to feel that. Nobody wants to be in despair and feeling like things aren't going to change. It's extremely unpleasant and dangerous. Okay, it's dangerous because I might stay there too long, and it hurts because it's really sad. But what I tried to do in the past week was really to acknowledge it, to sit with my hopelessness and just try to understand it. Because I find that the best way forward is really to take these hard points and just examine them and understand them a little better. Because to respond also to hopelessness by expending more energy and just pushing and pushing and pushing, that just leads to burnout. That just leads to numbness and apathy. And I've seen that before, okay, in other people. And also in myself. And I'm afraid that there will not be enough push to see things through if we're not careful. So I invite you, actually, because I do want to see change in the world, and I know many of you also want that. So I invite you, if any of you have been feeling anything like what I just talked about, I invite you to sit with me for a moment and really just look at this unpleasant feeling and really just look at this hopelessness. What I did was I asked my hopelessness, what are you here for? What purpose do you serve? What am I supposed to learn from you? Do I feel hopeless? Do I feel you because I'm afraid? Do I feel hopelessness because I'm so frustrated? Or do I feel hopeless because I'm just really tired? I just continued. I asked myself, if I feel hopelessness because of fear, then what am I afraid of? And the answer to that really is, I am afraid for the people I care about. I'm afraid for their safety. I'm afraid for my safety. But what does that tell me? What does my fear, which leads to hopelessness, actually tell me? It tells me that I care, that I do have that capacity to care, and that's important, so I hold on to that. Is my fear coming from the fear that the world's not going to change? And yeah, I am afraid. There's a part of me that's afraid that nothing's going to change. But what that tells me is just how much I want the world to change. And I really do. So I hold on to that. If I feel hopelessness because of frustration, then what am I frustrated about? Well, this was pretty clear to me that I am frustrated because actions and reactions have been cyclical. It's the same thing. It's the same thing again and again and again, and that's just really, really frustrating. And yeah, this is the frustration that cycles into numbness, that cycles into apathy and hopelessness. So, what did I do different this time? What I did differently is I stopped and allowed myself to stop. I said, all right, what might this stop be for? And I think when I stopped, it gave me a moment to evaluate and look at my actions, to rethink my automatic reactions out of anger, out of fear, or whatever, training from the past. And I looked at each of my actions or the actions I wanted to take, and I asked myself, if I am so frustrated because my actions just keep on repeating and repeating and repeating, maybe it's also good to ask, which of my actions can make a difference or has made a difference, and which of my actions have not? And this is a really, really hard question to ask because, again, some lessons are hard to learn, so we have to repeat them again and again and again. But at the same time, we don't want to just keep on doing the same thing again and again and again if it just produces the same results. So what my frustration and the halt of hopelessness teaches me is that maybe this stop is a starting point. It's a place where I can begin to rethink and reevaluate and take a different direction. Maybe the action can change too. We don't have to be stuck on the things that we're used to doing. Maybe we can pause and reevaluate and see, what else can I do? What is a different thing that I can do? And in this way, frustration can be a useful feeling because it's your stop and redirect. What else can you do? How can I use this frustration to reevaluate and redirect my energy away from actions that will just further frustrate me and onto actions that may begin to serve me better? And when I think about it that way, it will no longer, hopefully, lead to hopelessness and apathy. Now, if I feel hopelessness because I am tired, then perhaps the question is, how do I rest? How do I step away from this for a moment? Because if I keep on expending my energy, and when you're hopeless already, that's like a big hole on the side of your boat, You're sinking. And so instead of frantically finding a way to make the boat move, maybe it's time that I plug that hole for a moment and take out some of the water so I don't sink any further. That's what rest is, and that's why rest is so important. Because the energy that I have, I can use that. I can build on that first. Because if I keep on using it, it's a waste. I'll waste it on anxious action, on frantic expending of energy, or I'll waste it in despair and hopelessness. So if I can hold on to these things, and shift my focus, if I can shift my focus from the hopeless, the vague, large blanket of hopelessness that's there, and see that behind it is care. I feel that badly because I care that much. And if I realize that I feel that badly because I want so much for the world to change, I can hold on to that. And if I can notice that this stop is a way for me to reframe my frustration into reevaluation, into creativity. And this is also a way that I can pause to stop and rest. Then what will happen? If I hold on to care, creativity, my hope for change, I don't even want to use the word hope there, but my wanting it to change, and my acknowledgement of my human need to rest, what will happen? Well, I think what will happen, and what I do notice is happening with me, is that I can bounce back. When I take this moment and face those unpleasant feelings and process them for myself, then I can bounce back and I can keep on bouncing back. And I will be resilient and I will be creative and fluid so that I can survive this for the long haul. And if I keep doing this, then I will get past the setbacks, because there will be setbacks. Setbacks just happen. We will still get disappointed. We will still get hurt. We will still get threatened. So really, what's important even now is to know how we can take it. To know how, with all of this, we can roll with it and overcome it. We need to be in this for the long haul, because if not, nothing will change. It's just going to be an action that we do now. But that's what we want, is to change the world. Right? So, we got to be ready for that if that's what we really want. And so we got to be ready to deal with these kinds of feelings and get past them. So that's it. That's what I did this week. And hopefully, my sharing this kind of process with you can help you also, those of you who've been feeling these things. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you for your patience. I'm Moonshine. And really, the messages you've been sending us have been very helpful. I tried my best to respond to you, so hi to those who sent messages over the past 2 weeks. I'll get to those topics also, probably next week. We'll be chatting at the forum at 8bitfiction.com. You can send me more letters. Please continue to do so. I really appreciate it. And we are always there at Twitter and on Facebook. That's it for this week. Keep safe, everyone, and remember the things that you can hold on to, despite all these things that are going on around us, because those are really important.